Hi, I'm Mr. Kangas, and today we're going to be discussing Chapter 5, Section 1, Writing Fractions as Decimals. Really isn't too complicated a section. When you have a fraction, such as 3 over 4, to write it as a decimal, you do the division. If you recall correctly, this fraction bar here actually is a division sign. It means divide. So every fraction is, in reality, a division problem. This means 3 divided by 4. So that means we have to divide 3 by 4. So one way to remember, because I know a lot of times people forget, well, which number goes inside and which number goes outside. So it's kind of childish, but it's something I learned when I was a kid, and it worked and it stuck with me to remember which one goes inside and which one goes outside, and it makes sense to me. Now this won't necessarily work for everybody, but it goes something like this. Instead of saying 3 divided by 4, I kind of view this little division box as a castle. And I say, well, 3 is not being divided by 4, 3 is being invaded by 4. So if 3 is being invaded, then that means that 3 must be inside the castle, because in order to be invaded, you must be inside the town or the castle that's being invaded. And then 4 is invading 3, so 4 must be on the outside trying to get in, because that's what invaders do. They're on the outside and they try to get in. So 3 is being invaded by 4. So 3 is in the castle and 4 is trying to invade his castle. That's one way to remember it. Everyone has their own little tips and tricks. I just thought I would show you mine. Now, don't freak out when you see this. No, 4 cannot go into 3 evenly. So what you need to do to get a decimal answer is you have to remember that while you don't see it, there's a decimal here and a bunch of zeros here. Okay? There's actually an infinite amount of zeros to the right of that 3, and if I need to, I can put more over there. I typically don't ask for more than 2 places over. So now the decimal goes straight up into my problem, and we can start the division. 4 goes into not 3 0 times, but 4 goes into 30 7 times. And 4 times 7 is 28, and 30 minus 28 is 2. Drop down to 0, and 4 goes into 20 5 times. 4 times 5 is 20, and we have nothing left. The decimal 3/4 is the fraction of 3/4 is equal to the decimal of 0.75. So 3 over 4 is equal to 0.75. Now the other type of number you might see is a mixed number. And so some people get to this and they say, well, I know how to turn 3/4 into a decimal. How do I turn 4 and 3/4 into a decimal? This is a mixed number. What do I do? Well, it really isn't any more complicated than what we just did with 3/4 by itself. You still take the fractional part of the mixed number and you divide it like we did over here. And once you get the decimal that represents this fraction, you just take the whole number next to your mixed number, the 4 in this case, and you put the decimal right next to it, and you get an answer of 4.75. So it really isn't any more complicated to turn a mixed number into a decimal. Because remember, that 4 represents 4 whole. So that's like saying I have $4 and 3/4 of a dollar. Well, I have 4 whole dollars and 75 cents, or in other words, 3/4 of a dollar. 3 out of 4 quarters. Sometimes when you are dividing your fraction and you're trying to get your decimal, you may end up finding that your decimal repeats, which is why, or it might even go on forever. And if it's repeating, that's why I only have you go 2 places over. But if you do notice it repeats, maybe those first 2 numbers you got were 6 and 6, you can just put a little bar over it. That little bar tells you that these 6s are repeating forever and ever. And that's really all there is to Chapter 5, Section 1. Again, to write a fraction as a decimal, you just divide. If you have something like 2/3, it's 2 divided by 3. And remember, when you're trying to figure out what goes inside and outside, I always, instead of saying dividing by, I say 2 is being invaded by 3. So if 2 is being invaded, 2 is inside the castle, and 3 is outside trying to invade. So tune in to the next video on Chapter 5, Section 2.